Welcome to selfdiscoverymedia.com, where the orchard of wisdom shows are at your fingertips. It ignites your soul, your heart, your spirit, your mind, and your body with illumination from people who have made the journey before you. They're here now to help you on your journey, on your path of self-discovery. We are funded by you, the audience, and the people we interview. If you wish to support us, please go to selfdiscoverymedia.com and press on our Fund Action button. Anything is appreciated. We'd like you to sit back and enjoy the shows. Here we go. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Quantum Spirituality, right here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy, and my guest today is Mark Fiorentino. I hope I pronounced that right. We're going to be talking today about Einstein and the master of reality, how the universe really works based on his study and the research of Einstein's unified field theory. Now, we're not going to go all sciencey on you. We're going to be talking in terms that you're going to be able to understand. Mark shares his views on how the universe really works based on his study and research of Einstein's unified field theory. He will discuss with us how the applications of Einstein's theory can be used to travel through space, renewable energy, future technology. He will also talk about the connection to conspiracy theories, including UFOs and alien technology and how they're used, as well as the controversial topics as near-death experiences, revelations that are linked to the theory of the super relative. We're also going to be talking about his book, The Master of Reality, about the completion and the solution of Einstein's unified field theory. The book also contains many other world-changing discoveries as well. The secrets of the universe are revealed, and here is a short list of what the book is all about. Well, we're going to be talking about anti-gravity field and to breaking the light speed theory and the Big Bang theory explanation, which includes the true story of the star and the planet creation. Let us dive right into this. It really is quite fascinating when you think Einstein, how long ago, Tesla, how long ago. You have so many wonderful technologies that they were given, but it's taken us really so long to truly understand what it is and how to use it. Once it kind of switched on the light, everybody forgot about what else it could do or where it came from. So let us dive in. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Thank you for having me, Sarah. I'm going to enjoy this. It's going to be a lot of fun. Your people are going to all enjoy it. It's going to be a very interesting show. So where would you like to start?
Oh my goodness. Well, let's talk about Einstein's theory. Let's kind of understand what you're talking about.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good idea. So all we really need is there's the special and general relativity, and I don't really have any arguments other than the interpretation of special relativity, which is kind of detailed. We won't get into that. Modern day scientists basically have the wrong interpretation for what the math means inside of special relativity. And in my book, I fixed that. But as so far as the unified field theory, which was what Einstein worked on to the very last day.
A bit of a glitch.
Yeah, the quest for the truth. And the unified field theory can be described simply as electromagnetism and gravity emerge as aspects of a single fundamental field. So now let's go back over that, break that statement down.
Yes, definitely need to break it down.
A field is basically what they thought the field was in the year 1905 up till that point when a big breakdown in physics happened. But I won't discuss that right now. But up until 1905, the greatest physicists in the world, including Newton and Maxwell and Einstein and Lorentz and so forth, all believed that the fundamental field was the ether. And the ether was described at that time as a quasi-elastic solid. So let's break that down. Quasi means, let's say, if I go into outer space and I hold a magnet up, there'll be a field that forms around the poles. That, when I remove it quickly and the space will snap back into position, a flat Euclidean geometry, just flat space. So it's quasi. Elastic means this material, this substance can be stretched, twisted clockwise, counterclockwise, and little small deformations. The material itself does not really move, like drift like air or water. It's a solid. And so what I mean by solid is that which is continuous. It's not made up of parts. This thing is the foundation of reality. It's a quasi-elastic, continuous solid. So that's the fundamental field. So everything else in this universe is made from this substance, is consubstantial with this substance. So like particles, they're just little tiny fields, primarily electrostatic charges, twists of space, as what Heaviside and Maxwell thought they were back in the day. They were actually right. They just were never able to come up with the proper mechanical model, which I completed thanks to Einstein's help and thanks to Maxwell's help and Heaviside, all these other people that worked on it back in the day. These guys were on the right track. Unfortunately, the rails came off in 1905.
Well, of course, you have access to things now where you can measure and understand deeper than perhaps they had the tools for at that time.
Well, it was a measurement, an experiment called the Michelson-Morley experiment that fooled everybody because it was out there to test for the ether. And if it had found it, we wouldn't be discussing this. I think Einstein would have completed the work. But that really confused everyone because there was a test, the Michelson-Morley test was designed to find the ether wind as the Earth moved through space. They thought, well, this substance should make a wind, depending on whether we're going with it or against. And as we go around the sun at different times, sometimes we'll be going with the motion and sometimes against. And we should be able to detect that using the speed of light. Measuring it at right angles, see a difference. Well, they never did. And that's because they never really understood until later on that light always is independent from the source, the motion of the source. And so it would never detect an ether wind. That doesn't mean that there isn't an ether there. And that's what the conclusion was in that time. No ether wind, no ether.
Right.
And they gave up. And they did this experiment over and over again because they thought for sure it's there. But they didn't know that the photons, the things they were using to measure it, they're self-propagating. They go on their own. They don't get any of their motion from anything external. So as soon as they come out of whatever emitting source, they're going at the maximum speed. And it doesn't matter how fast or slow or what direction the Earth is moving in, it will make no difference. So they will not detect an ether wind. There's other experiments that can be done. That's another story I cover in detail, at least 2 experiments in my book. And they don't know it, but they're doing the experiments, but they're not acknowledging what they're finding. They're thinking there's something.
They're looking for something different and missing what's really there.
Well, the CERN, who has a particle beam that goes in a circle, those particles are not, they're being pushed by an external source, magnetic fields and electrostatic fields. Push and guide the particles that have mass. Photons have no mass. That's part of the problem. And so these will detect an ether wind, but they're not using that machine to detect ether wind. And so I went out and did a little research. I said, look, if there is going to be a problem, it will be in the December-January timeframe in the east and west tunnels of CERN. And I wish I had kept that article because I found a maintenance guy who was complaining about beam timing in December, January.
Why December,
Every
January?
Because the Earth is closest to the sun at that time, and it's moving the fastest.
Mm,
So that is the time. You got many motions involved. You got the Earth motion around the sun.
mhm,
You've got the solar system. The Earth, yeah, Earth going around the sun, Earth spinning,
mhm,
and then you've got the solar system as it's going around the galaxy and the galaxy motion. So you got to either add or subtract to get the total motion at any moment. And certain times of the year, the Earth will be going with the ether wind, and a certain time of the year against, because it's going around the sun. So
mm,
one time it's going this way, and another time it's going the other way.
mm.
And so it's a tricky business. But at this time, at December, January, the Earth goes the fastest. So that's the time when it's most likely we'll detect a difference in the east and west tunnels of, and sure enough, they have a problem, and they attributed it to groundwater. Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
so how do you measure that? How do you see it? Is there a different telescope? Is there a different way of actually getting that? I mean, we look at Einstein's time, they didn't have the technology we have today.
Well,
So,
we could do it. It would be, there's a number of ways. The one guaranteed way to determine your motion relative to the ether is through time measurement.
no.
And Lorentz tried to tell Einstein and the others about that,
Hmm.
because he understood the Lorentz transformations, which compose special relativity very, very clearly. Those equations were derived using an ether model. Although Einstein at the last minute disavowed the ether because he knew the Michelson-Morley experiment, he was watching it. It was going on for 4 years, and he was in communication with Michelson, I believe, and he was aware that they were going to announce they didn't find an ether wind. So at the last minute, he changed the wording in special relativity to disavow the ether because he didn't want his theory to be rejected, and
Oh,
he gave a different interpretation. And so that experiment had a profound effect on the course of physics and history.
mm. When
So
you look at all those that have gone before, and even now, anybody who has the insight to see things between the lines or different, it's really, it's rather like a recipe, isn't it? It may start off with one recipe and then somebody adds another ingredient or changes this
exactly.
content, and then but it doesn't, we can look at things and think in the moment it's absolute, but then down the road maybe there's a different apparatus to look at it from, or a different equation, or a different point of view, and then we see it again from another point of view, and there's something there that we didn't have before. But that is what science is about, isn't it? It's always in movement, it's always in rediscovery. And it's not like that's it. It's something else could be revealed about it down the road.
Well, you described the ideal scientific method. That is not what it's like. I will tell you what's wrong. It is a tragic occurrence that scientists can be blinded by their own presuppositions.
Mm-hmm.
Science is badly infected by this now. Because if somebody like me, I would never have come to the conclusions I came to while researching and studying this over the past 45 years if I had been a classically
Yeah.
trained physicist.
Yes.
Because when I start talking about things like ether, that's blasphemy.
Oh.
It's heresy in modern day physics. It's all about things aren't real, things aren't, particles don't have paths, they don't have velocity. Only when you look, it goes on and on with nonsensical explanations that really physicists have lost their grip on reality. And so in order to succeed, I had to train myself. And you're very right about your recipe kind of idea. I called it more like linking things. And the discovery of the unified field theory solution was very much like nothing more than an elaborate SAT question. In that, one of those Rorschach things where you're looking for a pattern, and you see you have this, you have that, and you have that, and then it adds something. And then the next part of the pattern adds that same thing again, like an extra square or whatever. Then predict from there what the next, choice is going to be, the next pattern. And that's what this was. I had to uncover a lot of patterns that were buried in history and within nature and properly interpret them. Unfortunately, the scientists of this day and time have gone off the deep end, and it's primarily due to quantum mechanics theory and interpretation. It's very bad. And Einstein argued with them from the beginning of it. And he helped establish that there is a quantum and started the birth of quantum theory, but it got out of hand, and he would argue with Niels Bohr and Heisenberg and the others.
Egos step in, right?
Yeah, it wasn't really, not with him, it wasn't really ego. I mean, maybe there was some a little bit, but he was sure he was on the right path there, and there really had to be. It was about particles moving through space, not particles interacting with particles. And that's the model of quantum mechanics. It's all about smashing particles into one another and seeing what comes out. And that's really secondary. What's really where gravity is concerned, that's why they could not solve gravity. And they tried 26 times and failed. They've tried every method they can because they want gravity to be about a particle-to-particle interaction. It was never about that. It's about a particle-to-space interaction. The particles moving through space cause a gravitational field as they move through space. And I remember the day that I discovered the proper wording, and I was writing in the book, and there was a thunderstorm outside. and I typed out, gravity is caused by the accelerated motion of fundamental unbalanced charges. When they move in this way, that causes space in and around the particle to contract. Gravity is a contraction of the spatial medium. And I mean, there was a big thunderbolt when that.
Wow. Thumbs up, thumbs up.
I must be onto something.
Exactly.
That's it. That sums up what gravity is. And that's what my model is, the mathematics, which was fairly simple, coming mostly from Newton. Surprise, everybody. He was right after all.
Right. Yeah, I find that sometimes what you have is people who go to school and learn what has been aren't always open to what could be there, or that perhaps this isn't absolute. Maybe we need to look at it a step further or from a different angle. And that is the trouble, sometimes with people in any industry. If they go in, they learn, it can stifle the creativity or the wonderment to look at a different way of looking at a different way of doing it. We see this all the time in business. We see it in medicine. We see it in many things. And it is that this is the basis of the knowledge that you're learning now. But in everything, we need to have an open mind and a wonderment as what else could be, because otherwise we're never going to evolve.
Well, you're very absolutely correct. And I don't know if you remember Sir Henry Dale, president of the Royal Society of London.
I never met him, but I've heard of him.
Well, he's way back when. But he said something that applies to this problem. It is never good science to ignore anomalous data or to eliminate a conclusion because of some presupposition. Sir Henry Dale, one-time president of the Royal Society of London, made an important comment in his retirement speech. Science should not tolerate any lapse of precision or neglect any anomaly, but give nature's answers to the world humbly and with courage. To do so may not place one in the mainstream of modern science, but at least we will be searching for truth and moving ahead rather than maintaining the scientific status quo.
Yes.
He's hit the nail on the head.
Exactly.
This is what's wrong. And I'll give you examples. finish this thought. One of the things that has been said is that the speed of light is constant. And there's enormous amounts of evidence that say it's really not.
Mm.
Speed of light goes at a different speed. As soon as it hits air from outer space, it slows down. When it goes into water, it slows down again.
Mm-hmm.
When it goes through glass, it slows down even more. And I was also able to determine, it's a well-known scientific fact, that the speed of light enters a gravitational field. An observer away from the field and the light can measure it and see it's slowing down.
Mm.
So the speed of light is determined by the medium it's going through.
Right, which would make sense.
Which is all sensible. I'm
Yes.
not saying crazy stuff here. I'm not saying stuff that scientists don't already know.
Right.
But they want to argue with it because they want to inject quantum mechanics theory into it, which then doesn't want to deal with the speed of light even being a speed of light, or the light being observed is not there until you observe it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the whole issue gets very fuzzy. And basically what I discovered when I suspected that the speed of light most likely was slowing down. And I found the scientist who actually did the work, Barry Setterfield. And he discovered over the last 200 or 300 years, every time they measured the speed of light, it was slowing down.
And not just because of what it's going through, but it's slowing down in general.
Yeah, and they even used the same equipment years later, and it slowed down again. They use a specific length, right? The perfect meter, which is held in France. It's made out of palladium or some metal like that. I don't know. And they use that to set the equipment up, and then you should get the same number every time.
Right.
But over the years, it's a little bit slower, a little bit slower.
Why would it be? What's happening that it is slower?
Well, thinking that, well, it's either speeding up or slowing down. Now I know it's slowing down. Now the reason has to be because the gravitational force, the field around us, is increasing. And why would that happen?
Yeah.
So I said, now I go looking through astronomical records because I suspect that outer space, we are heading toward a black hole.
Ooh.
A big one. And sure enough, there's all these astronomers out there saying, hey, look, we're part of the Lanakia galaxy cluster, along with many other galaxies, and we're not moving apart like the current theory. All galaxies, no, they're not. Our group is moving together towards something called the Great Attractor, and they know it's there. So if you go outside at night and you look up at the Milky Way and you look straight through it, that's where it is. That's where we're going, and we're moving there at about a rate of 1.3 million miles an hour, and it's accelerating.
And when do you think we'll be there?
Oh, 4.5 billion years.
Right. So don't need to worry, folks. It's not next week.
No, we're not in any danger from dying from that. The sun will probably somewhere in the same time go red giant and cook this planet. And so we have to figure out a way to get off this planet, and that's what I did in the book. I figured out a device that we can build that will enable us to have starships that will be able to break the light speed barrier by as much as we need to, so that we can get to another star in a matter of a few hours, in some cases a few minutes. And that's practical.
It's actually funny you've said that, because my brother is an author and he's just written a youth book based on that. You're kind of breaking the speed barrier, and they're looking for another planet, and they're actually heading for one, but something goes wrong, of course. So, as it is meant to be a thriller as well. But
I'm sure your brother is being divinely inspired.
Oh yes, when he writes, he's writes from a totally different sphere and channel for sure.
Yes.
A lot of people would say, hopefully we're not burning up soon, but definitely the world is changing. The atmosphere is changing, everything is changing, nothing ever stays the same. And that's something we need to get through our heads. But where would we go where we could have this, a similar type beautiful world?
Well, if we were And I suspect some of this is already being done because at least the United States has this technology. I've been made aware of it by somebody who's seen it personally, who is not ever going to come out in the open and
You
talk
wouldn't
about it.
dare.
No, they're very much afraid, and I
Yes.
respect them. They came to me, they approached me and gave me a highly detailed description of the event in which they saw one of our spaceships, and they were close up enough to see the markings on it, and it said UFO,
Mm,
United States Air Force
mhm,
experimental. And it had no jets, it had no wings, it had no propulsion method that they could see
mm,
other than some sort of magnetic field or some field that was swirling underneath the ship when it was close to the ground. They could
ooh,
see something going on in the dirt and the rubble. And then it took off way up into space, just like almost instantly. And so we have it,
yeah,
we know about it.
yeah,
You know, how much we've shared with other countries, who knows? I
yes,
don't.
yes,
I'm not on the inside there. All I'm
right.
trying to
But
do bring that technology forward.
I think, I mean, there's a new theory going around that the world is actually flat, and people are actually believing that, which is just
Yeah.
mind-boggling. But in some ways, I feel that humanity, a certain group of humanity, are just regressing backwards. Because resistance is futile. I don't want the future. I'm going backwards to the good old days. When they were in those days, they wanted to go forward to better days. So they're never going to be satisfied. But we've
Mm,
also got some ingenious minds. And I think one of the connections that I am seeing is the connection to other source of wisdom, not just human source. And,
right.
I feel Einstein, probably, most certainly Tesla, they channeled this knowledge. The thing is, they had the intellect to understand what to do with it, right? So we all have the capability of opening up and channeling some divine wisdom, some beautiful knowledge. But if it doesn't go to a brain that doesn't know what to do with it, then it's kind of wasted. When it's, but a lot of we'll say, yes, it was trial and tribulation, but a lot of it is just that it just came to me, or I just saw it. And that's kind of a downloading of that knowledge, isn't it?
Yeah, I call it an infusion process.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I think St. Thomas Aquinas also said that,
Mm-hmm.
that's the road inspiration. It's a higher form of knowledge,
Yes.
just knowing,
Yes. The knowingness.
not
Yes.
trying to figure it all out with letters and words
Yes.
and, that way. That's,
It just is.
yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine just knowing how something works and
Yeah.
having it placed into your mind.
Exactly.
That's what happens when people die and they have near-death experiences and they're
Mm-hmm.
communicating telepathically. Well, it's not just with words and thoughts, it's with whole three-dimensional
Yep.
imagery and feeling. One person described his knowledge on the other side, his consciousness's capability as being aware of every grain of
Mm-hmm.
sand on every planet in the entire universe and knowing its place, its position, and its purpose,
Mm-hmm.
just all at once.
Well, that is actually what we're meant to be finding here on this planet. I mean, we're in kindergarten. We're hoping we're growing up to a few higher grades. But that
Right.
connection of knowingness is the journey that we're going through life right now, is
Yes.
the connection. When you actually do any astral traveling and you kind of get up into space, you know everything and nothing. You are everything and nothing. And it's very hard to explain that to people, of that just
Yeah.
that knowledge. But that knowingness very much will just come through in truth. You know what you know when you know it, because that's when you do need to know it. You don't need to know it before then. It simply just is. And now it is for you to do, or to take it the next step further.
Right.
I feel here, on this planet, as humanoids, we're meant to become the human beings by merging the beautiful universal information in with our human bodies, being able to actually then do things that perhaps certain universal people can't do because they don't have bodies. But we're here to learn. We're here to learn We're here
Mhm.
to grow before we
Right,
ascend up to, without the bodies. And
right,
there is some wonderful information out there that when you ask people, well, how did you how did you get there? And they'll be able to tell you, I don't know, it just is, or it just came to me. And
right.
that is because they opened up those channels and allowed that knowingness to come through them. That's the point of us being here, is allowing that knowledge to come through us.
Yes, you hit on a very important point. Just opening up and
Mhm.
being open to the
Yeah.
idea, because the other side wants to communicate with
Hmm.
us, but they need our permission.
Yes.
In order, they're not going to force it on us.
No.
Our free will is very important. So once people learn to, meditate and pray to God, pray to spirit guides, pray to your deceased loved ones and
Hmm.
so forth, then you're allowed to get more
Hmm.
information. They'll answer questions. And I have seen that literally and physically happen to me on
Hmm.
multiple occasions. When I write my next book, I'm going to talk all about this spiritual thing, all these things, and give real life examples that happened to me where I was shown you can predict the future,
Yes.
as they allowed me to predict it in my own dream
Hmm.
on multiple occasions.
Hmm.
Upon asking, I just asked in prayer before I fell asleep.
Right.
And they came to me and they showed me things. But the key is what you hit on. You have to be open to it and
Hmm.
willing.
Hmm.
Hey, I know you exist. I know you're there helping me, because everybody has guardian angels.
Yep.
All 8 billion people on this planet have
Yes.
guardian angels. I don't care what religion you are.
It doesn't matter. Doesn't, has
All
nothing to
from
do with
the
that's
same
that
place.
is an earth thing. That is a human thing.
Right.
Yeah.
That's us misinterpreting religion,
Yes.
like fighting about that.
Yes.
We're all from the same place,
Mhm.
and we're all going back to that same place as long as we want to, and as long as we're not too angry.
Right.
The anger can't fit into heaven,
No. No.
and hate and all that stuff.
Doesn't belong.
So you
Yeah.
wind up somewhere else until you resolve that.
Hmm.
Uh,
Soul
And
school.
I've read many, many, many NDEs, so I'm pulling from those experiences to give you a description of what I'm saying. Basically, is the layout or the plan for returning to heaven,
Hmm.
and and realizing that is important for humanity, and certainly the Father, if you want to call him that, or the supreme intelligence, or infinite intellect, is sending people back in droves.
Yes. No, 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 mate. You ain't got it right yet. Off you go.
Well,
Another lifetime.
they're having these near deaths thanks to the
Yes.
modern technology and so forth, and they're coming back and
Hmm.
with a mission.
Oh, yeah.
They're
Most
telling them,
certainly.
yeah, there. He's saying, tell them God is real, Jesus is real, the afterlife is real. You don't die.
Hmm.
When you physically die, your consciousness just leaves your
Exactly.
body.
Just the body, just the vessel that goes.
Just
That's
the
all. You
vessel,
just
that's
borrowed
right.
this vessel to have
And
this
you,
human experience. That's it.
right, that's exactly right. And it's just an eternal, uh, you are eternal. Everyone is
Everyone
eternal.
is.
Yeah. So
And
don't
everybody has
forget
the
it.
capability of channeling. Everybody has the capability of the knowingness. I mean, that is why we're here. But we're also here not only to learn and evolve, but we're here to let go of the fear, to let go of the hate, to let
Right.
go of the violence, and to understand that that is our insecurity. When we're fearful, there's fear and there's love,
Fear.
right?
Yeah.
Fear will bring the hate and
Fear
the
and
violence.
ignorance.
And yeah, love, you can't knowingly hurt anyone because it would be to hurt yourself. It's a frequency that resonates so high that there is no willingness to hurt anyone. It is a place of collaboration, of cohesiveness, of oneness. And people think when you talk about oneness that you lose your own identity. But every single cell in our body and in the universe has a job to do. And we have a job to do in our lifetime, or even in our many lifetimes. And that job, whatever it is, we're here to do, to experience, bring that knowledge back or that experience back. But we can't abstain from it. We can't ignore it. We're going to get the cosmic 2x4 if we, keep avoiding it. At some point, we have to step into our role of what we were here to do. And that means opening up, allowing the knowledge to come through us, and then participating and doing it. The near-death experiences of people being sent back, that they just went to gather. They just went to gather information, and then they really do open up. Our young children right now are beautiful indigo children because they really are opening up and they're being able to see things. And what we have to do is get out of their way. Stop dictating how they should be educated or how they should be this or that. It is about listening to them and what they're here to do and help support them on that journey. So to think that being human is all there is, it would be actually quite scary when you actually look at humans and the way they keep hurting themselves.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of misinformation, disinformation, a lot of division.
Yes.
Which is intentionally being caused to distract people from doing the right thing and behaving the right way. And this is in order, obviously, to control them.
And science is here to help us do that. People think that science and spirituality are different. They aren't. Well, the science helps us understand the spirituality or how to tap into that energy.
Yeah, my theory is an intelligent design theory. So I'm all about bringing science and religion together again. Mm-hmm. It used to be that way, and the religion used to
then became a form of control.
Yeah, sometimes it wanted science to think about this thing in this way, and they influenced each other back and forth. And then when scientists found that the Earth was not the center of the solar system, mm-hmm. they eventually went along with it. But there's that problem in science still that a great majority of the scientists are either agnostic or atheists. Mm. And this is a big problem because they won't be able to tap into the other realm because they don't believe in it and they block it.
Yes.
So they are going to draw conclusions and interpretations based on randomness and nothingness.
Yeah.
And that's a blind alley. That's a dead end, and you'll never.
And a waste of time.
Yeah, and the most brilliant minds are locked into this, and it's somehow I'm hoping some way I can have an influence and say, look, this is an intelligent design, and God sends people back. Like here's an example: Father Rick Wendell, a person on my website. He had a near-death experience and became a priest. And this is what God says this to him, as well as others, basically saying the same thing. God says to him, all this three-dimensional world is within God. Mm-hmm. There is nothing outside of God. Everything within this physical universe has to correspond to laws, and God set those laws. They are immutable as God is immutable. None of this, what we see and experience, is an accident. It is intentioned by God. Mm-hmm. It's just that simple. And there are other people coming back and saying the same thing, basically.
Yeah. And whether you want to call it God or not, it doesn't matter. It is that source.
God doesn't even care about.
No. It's just tap into that energy, that source. May the force be with you, right? It is when we tap into that, we learn how to use it. We learn how to conduct our lives. We learn how to see things differently. If we choose just to look at it from just the human aspect, we're always going to be asking why or but or what if or I don't understand, because it's constantly a spiral of knowledge. When we step into the wisdom of the force of energy of God's knowledge, then we are actually opening up and understanding what we're seeing. And we're given enough information to explore and take it to that next step. And that's in every aspect of your life, whether it's science or business or anything in life. That applies. If we're not open-hearted, we can't be open-minded. And the reason I say that is that God's love comes through the heart. God's wisdom comes through the heart. If your heart is shut down, where does it come to? If it goes to the head, it's only going to argue it. It needs to come through the heart, ignited through the heart, to actually understand the knowledge that you're being given.
That sounds fairly reasonable and agreeable to me, basically. I don't have any arguments with any of that. I'm very into the spiritual realm as a philosopher, I guess, and an amateur scientist, so to speak. I believe it's vitally important that we reunite religion and science. I think it was Einstein who said, "Science without religion is lame. Religion without science is blind."
And there's a lot of blindness out there, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I think, religion has been totally misinterpreted. It became a source of fear, and it became a source of control, and it became very contrite. And a lot of people are walking away from religion and going to the spirituality. Some spiritual practices are just going exactly the same as religion and calling it spirituality. And when you really step into the spirituality of your essence, you have a direct line to God. You don't need to go to church. You are always connected. You are never, ever alone. And it is up to you through the meditation, through the prayer, through your own channeling of connecting and understanding. And really, it's about compassion, communication, collaboration. It is about us coming together in unity, supporting one another with the love, with the kindness, with the understanding, with the patience. These are all the ingredients that we're given to apply to life, to apply to the science. The science and spirituality can live very happily together. There is not one or the other.
Right. I agree. This is all that you can say can be backed up and solved in one or two simple sentences, really. Coming from God, again, just talking about what you just talked about, this is what God said. There is one commandment for man: love one another. That does all of what you just said.
Why? Why do we find it so hard to do? Because ego gets in the way, fear gets in the way, greed gets in the way. You look at all these dictators around the world. What is the driving force? Inside is a lost little child, and they feel if they have more power, they're going to be happier. The thing is, I don't care what you've got on the outside. If you're not doing the work and you're not connected on the inside, that beautiful divine channel, heart, soul, you're never going to be happy, and you're always going to feel alone. Life is an inside out job.
Yeah. It really can be simple if we accept that one commandment, really take it to heart. If everything is ruled by just coming from a basis of love, you're not going to try to squash other people or control them or make laws that control them in this way or that. And that's why I think the bigger the government, probably the more the problems.
Yes, I agree.
There are people contriving and conniving to make more laws.
And you name it. Yes.
Yeah. If people just live by that one commandment, love one another, you're not going to steal from your fellow man. You're not going to murder. You're not going to declare war. You're just going to find ways to work things out because you love one another and you want things to be loving and peaceful. And there is always a solution if you both have an open mind and are willing to talk.
That's one of my favorite words, is the solution. There is always a solution to any problem. But if you're not asking the right question, or if you're not in with the right people to ask, then how are you going to get to that solution? And people who choose to live in a love state, it's measured in hertz, it's measured in volume, and it shows that we're 70% water in our body. So all this hate, all this anger, all this fear that we carry around contaminates our water. And this is why we end up with dis-ease and disease and mental problems and everything else. When we choose to step into love, into forgiveness, into kindness and caring. The waters change, we're healthier. And there is a vibration that precedes you when you go out. People feel the love from you before they even see you or speak to you. There is that glow that's out there. And that is something we need more of. If each and every one of us chose to love the person next to us, imagine the domino effect around the world.
Yeah, especially the leaders. They need to really
Yes.
stop what
Well,
they're doing.
there are some that are a lost cause, I'm afraid. You know, it's
Yeah.
the narcissism comes from a child that has been neglected and never was taught how to love or how to share, and that has grown. It's like, I don't care who I hurt to get what I want. We know right now, well, this is the theory amongst us very spiritual people, is that all this argument and all this war, even the pandemic right now, is a wake-up call. You know, universe gave me a saying about 4 or 5 years ago: the universe is going to shake us up, to wake us up, for us to step up, change it up, and grow up vibrationally, but also grow up as a human race. And many, many people have stood up and are changing it up because they don't want to go back to what is. But the reason why we have so much resistance right now, a war and all these other things going on, is because they know the change is happening. They know the vibration is happening, and they know they can't be a part of it with the hate. So they're the ones that are making the loudest noise at the present moment. But resistance is futile, because the more of us that step into love, the higher the frequency, the higher the vibration, the more we actually change the entire planet, right down to its core.
You should look up what you're saying is backed up by what this man is saying on the internet. Have you ever heard of Project Looking Glass?
I have heard of it, yes.
Do a search on that on YouTube, and there's this guy, and it said God wins.
Yes.
It says that on the YouTube picture, so that's how you know you're on the right one.
Yeah.
It's a guy, he's in a suit, and he said he worked in Project Looking Glass, and basically what he was saying kind of backs up what you're saying, is that starting in the year 2012, they could use this. It's part computer program and part it can look into the future kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's a Stargate of some sort that apparently the United States, at least the United States, has. And starting in 2012, they were using it to manipulate the future, because they want the future, they want an outcome for the people, the masses, to believe certain things, and basically a dam of lies is what the
puppeteering. Yes.
Yeah. And starting in 2012, when they made changes, it stopped affecting things in the future. No matter what they did, they couldn't change this outcome. That was all the possibilities were all
it's on a trajectory. You can't stop it.
All channeling into this one future, which this guy called like the awakening.
Yes.
And the other side doesn't want that. Yep. They says, how can we change this? How can we affect this? And they keep running the program, and they call this guy in to debug and say there's something wrong with the system. Nothing we do affects it anymore, and this is coming up, and we can't seem to stop this big event, whatever it is. I do think it's really close, by the way.
I do too. Well, are you the big event that's going to change us up into this higher vibration?
Yeah.
Or are you talking big event that's going to end the planet?
No, it's not. It's not going to end the world. It's
just people, certain people on it.
What he says, it's going to end their world.
Right. Yes. So, yes.
They don't know what to do about how.
Well, that's the reason why that they know it's there. They don't know what this feeling is, but they know it's there, and they're running scared. And instead of going, I want to go with it, I want to protest,
They don't really get that God has a plan.
Right.
And
don't mess with God.
Troops in all around them. Yeah. And they know how to manipulate the universe for the better, or this planet, so that it doesn't go down this bad path.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's going to be some suffering involved. I can guarantee when this event happens and it all breaks loose. I think it will be an economic a very serious
Yep.
economic collapse.
Yep. Well, I mean, kind of the pandemic started the whole role of that, didn't it? I mean,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
first part of the pandemic brought the world
Even
together.
before that,
Yeah.
the 9/11 disaster
Mm,
caused immense expense. And then there was the housing
hmm.
mortgage
Crisis.
thing
Yeah.
debacle.
2008. Yeah.
Yeah, another blunder. And now the COVID thing,
Yeah.
it's one blow after
Yes.
another blow. There's only so much money you can print to try to fix these problems. Eventually, that's going to cause hyperinflation, and we're going to be in a very serious situation.
But we're
And
heading that right now with all the cost of everything going up so exponentially.
yep,
And clearly,
yes,
obviously,
we are.
salaries aren't or pensions aren't, and we're already seeing that shift there. Um, and yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see where it goes, because at some point there has to be a massive change. And, one of the things about the pandemic really is with all of the countries being in it, we're all in that situation of recovery. And I'm talking emotional recovery, financial recovery. But I don't believe it's going to be one country. I do believe it's going to be hitting the world. And I think they're probably going to be looking at e-commerce in a totally different way.
Yes, yes, I think it's going to be worldwide. I've already
Yeah.
looked at some of the charts. There's multiple countries falling into hyperinflation already, and there's others moving toward it. Some of that is being not reported accurately. United States is statistics. The inflation rate is way higher than what the government is reporting.
Mm-hmm.
And that was changed back, I believe, in the Carter administration. If you're not going to count food and fuel in the calculation,
The two
not a
things that have
very
gone
good calculation.
skyrocketing.
Yeah, yeah. So it's considerably worse than what I think people realize. Some people realize right now. So hopefully, we can fix this, but maybe the solution is not fixing it and
Let
letting
it
everything.
break and rebuild in a totally
Yeah,
different way. I
yeah,
mean, that's
yeah.
that's sometimes it's like you're trying to renovate a house and you come across one problem after the other after the other, and sometimes it's cheaper just to pull it down and rebuild. So
Well, the entire foundation is
yeah.
faulty.
Yes. Yes.
Doesn't pay to try to keep patching it and building
No.
it. You gotta knock it down and rebuild it from the start.
Right. Exactly. And really what we are looking at in every aspect of our lives is the foundation of religion, the foundation of economics, the foundation of government, even in our educational system. We haven't adapted or evolved along with the times or along with the need, and people keep trying to hold on to what was. And it's like the wind, it constantly needs to be in movement. It's like the blood in our body, the oxygen in our body, it needs to flow, and we cannot keep stifling it. And so I think at the present moment, I think the earth is definitely retaliating. I call her Mama Earth. She's very pissed off with us. And if we don't get our act together, she may evict us. But definitely, the father is saying enough with these tantrums. We're going to have to shake it up in order to change it up. And we've got to be ready for that. But I think if you're already stepping into that higher vibration, you are in whatever level going to be a part of the solution.
Well, there's a lot of discoveries in my book, and I use the discoveries then to propose solutions, like Project not Looking Glass, Project Sunshade. Yeah, the Earth is definitely warming up. I'm
Yes.
not sure I agree with what the cause is. The real cause is, I have no doubt, is humanity.
Yeah.
I'm not all the way bought into the greenhouse effect. I think it's just my personal opinion is that they're ripping down the forest.
Yes.
Say that word for some reason right now. And tearing out the green space, building more buildings, more highways. These things get extraordinarily hot. In certain areas, in Saudi Arabia area, they changed all the roofs from black roofs to white. The average temperature in that area dropped 1 degree by just changing the color of the roof so that they reflect more light and not absorb it.
Right. That makes sense.
and it becomes convective. It stores in the atmosphere. And that's the problem we're having, because NASA is doing measurements not only at the ground level, but in the upper atmosphere. In that area, it's actually getting a little cooler than normal. But yet down here, it's continually increasing. And if you look at the globe at night and you see all the lights and you see all the massive amounts of people, it could be that we're just building too much stuff. Cities are naturally warmer in the countryside. And so the more cities we make and the more the human activity and roads and buildings, it's all heating the atmosphere.
Yeah.
And so I come up with Project Sunshade in order to have a solution and a way to just cool down the temperature of the earth. But it requires us to have the supercar technology, basically the hovercraft that uses the slip wave spatial bias drive, which is something that I propose in my book, and I'll be doing experiments to see if I can actually build an experimental prototype. So if we have that, then we could put blinds, large ones that span at least 2 square million miles, and we can flip them open or close them and drop the incoming energy by approximately 2%, which should translate into 1 degree average global cooling, which would put us back somewhere in the years 1940, 1930, weather-wise. We'll start seeing winters like that again. And if we do this over the right area, we can get a double benefit. We could use it to kill hurricanes. Shade where the hurricane is, and it cannot grow. The pressure will rise as it gets shaded, and you'll basically keep the hurricane from becoming deadly. You can let it grow into a somewhat of a storm, but if you put the shadow over Hurricane Alley,
it doesn't become a killer.
We can kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
No, you know,
you can always open the blinds again if we need.
As you need to, right? Just like we do with the window, right?
But I think the sun itself is going to slowly burn hotter.
Yes. Yeah.
That's already known. And that as the hydrogen fuel runs out, it switches to helium, and that's a hotter process. And so over time, I see a planet has to do that if you want that planet to hang in there longer before you have to leave it. At some point, we have to leave this planet. Sooner or later, it's not going to be habitable.
Right.
We just sit around and twiddle our thumbs and smack particles together in the accelerator and not really find any physics worth anything of use. We need to start working on anti-gravity technology in earnest, and we need to come out, disclose that we have it, and allow other companies across the world to start building chips so that we can go out and explore. We can send out probes to other, we don't have to go to every planet ourselves. We can send a probe out there, take pictures, measure the atmosphere. Is this a likely candidate? Yes, no, next planet. We're going to find that there are, just in this galaxy, hundreds of millions of planets.
Yes.
And 20 or 30% are going to have some form of life on it. Right. That's a lot of places that we could live. And we need to do that if we're going to survive and evolve. And this needs to happen.
And the thing is it's also, don't rely on government. Right. You know, when we look at the real solutions, they come from either individuals or they come from, those that have put the money behind it. And, it's some of those very rich people, instead of just rockets for 11 minutes up into space, if they put that money into really looking up the alternatives that we can do, there's always the innovations. I was involved with somebody with a brilliant electric motor, one that apparently shouldn't have worked, especially at the size that it was. But we ran into 2008, the funding, the people who were going to fund us lost everything. Then we ran into someone trying to steal it. And it's just the pushback, everybody, oh, it's wonderful. Oh, this is fantastic. The applications are just absolutely amazing. Go and build it, and then we'll get behind it. No, we need money to go and build it. And it just was, just everything about it was all wrong. And I think we need to look at this, if you wait for governments to change anything, we're going to be long gone. Right? Because they just can't agree over anything, never mind get behind something. But I think we need some brilliant minds together, especially those with money, and go, okay, I see the solution. How much is it going to cost? How many countries need to come together with this? How are we going to do it? And take the reins. Please don't wait for your government. We'll be long gone and burnt out and through the wormhole, through the black hole before that happens.
There's definitely rumors going around that there's patents for free energy devices, motors like you're describing. I know of a person personally who worked in a patent department at a major company. I won't say what type of company, but that person told me, we have patents that would change the world. We bought them and we shelve them.
That is the problem. That is the problem. And actually, we even had that kind of offer and we knew what they were going to do with it. There was another one where opening up where they would get behind our technology, but they wanted to militarize it. We didn't want it to go that way. So yes, that is the problem. We have got on the shelves some brilliant solutions. And unfortunately, yeah, they buy it up. They don't want people to know. And it's rather like religion. The religious people don't want you to know that you can have a direct link to God. They want you've got to go through the priest, you've got to go through the church, instead of that direct link. And we look at our millennials today. They're having less children. I have 3 children who are millennials, one who won't have, one who is nowhere near there, and one who's just going to have 2. She has 1 right now. And they're looking at different quality of life. They're looking at the environment. My daughter and her husband built a passive house to the best of the ability that the law would allow them to do. Even though the passive house has been around for over 40 years in Europe and proved to be much better built, they had so many obstacles to jump through here because of old planning and all this that they had to do, even though the passive house is a much better economical thing. So we have to kind of get with the game, and we have to put pressure on the governments that do cripple us to say, get with it now. It's not tomorrow, not yesterday, but now. Because if we're not willing to change moment by moment, you're going to look back and go, oh God, I really should have paid attention to that. Right? We don't want that. We don't want regrets. We want action.
Yeah. I know I'm going to try to do my part to make it a better world by going on shows like this and communicating these ideas and encouraging people to do the experiment that I suggest in the back of my book. It's right. You're right. It's not going to happen through the government. It would have to be an entire personality change.
Yes.
What's going on right now, I would have to have a whole fundamentally different philosophy than what they have now in order for anything of good of that nature coming from the government. There's just.
But I think that's also going to be part of that economic change. I think governments are going to fall as we know them. And I think there is going to be a total restructure, not only of our finances of the government, which then I think is also going to bring forth the solutioners, the people with the innovations, who are going to either have new government behind them or are going to step up and just take the reins. But I think this whole shakeup that you're talking about right now,
well, we have
it's going to be the one.
You're frozen on this end.
Oh, am I? And you're frozen on my end, but I can still hear you.
Okay, there you go. There you go. You just came back. I don't know. We must have had a network.
Yeah. So that's the internet for you. Somebody could actually make that better for us. But this actually, I mean, just look at the gift what the internet is. Now, as humans will have it, they'll do the deep dark web and do something sinful with it because that's certain human nature. But look at how much I interview people from all over the world. Connect with people all over the world. During the pandemic, people were speaking to people in business and everything this way around the world. It opened up the spectrum of what is possible to many, many people. Just that simple thing. And it's, you know, I'm a 50s born girl, and we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have pagers. We were lucky if we had color TV. You know, we didn't have any of this. But,
I
you
couldn't have
know,
written the book without it.
mhm,
The internet and all the documents I
right.
read documents all the way back to Newton's time that were digitized and
Yes.
looking for evidence and such through Einstein's work, through
Hmm.
Maxwell, and these are, more than 100 years old, 200 and 300 years old. There was a lot that I could have and get access to now easily, plus a variety of scientists and other opinions and
Hmm.
so forth, and discussions that I've had that is not possible just going down to your local library and
Right.
trying to get something out of this book or that book, or wait for this book to come from another library.
Mm.
People don't realize the incredible power
Yes.
of the internet for research.
Hmm.
It's an amazing thing. I've been able to talk to scientists doing experiments that I have theories on. And unfortunately, some of those scientists are pretty stubborn. But I did find out that like there's this other experiment having to do with the speed of light you'd be interested in.
Yeah.
In the magnetic field, quantum mechanics predicts the speed of light going through a magnetic field will slow down. It will do a double refraction. It's called a
Ooh.
birefringence experiment. And I thought, well, here's the place where quantum mechanics and super relativity theory can battle that out. Because
Hmm.
my theory says the speed of light speeds up in a magnetic field. So I started digging around the internet, and I found this engineer that wrote a paper about this experiment. Turns out they do this experiment,
Right.
but they're trying to prove quantum mechanics, and they've been trying for like 60 to 70 years.
Hmm.
And every time they do it, quantum mechanics is not confirmed. They cannot detect the slowing of light. It does refract, but one of the guys got a negative number. What does that mean? Negative refraction number? It means that the longer wave, the extraordinary wave, actually sped up. And they don't like that. They broke the experiment down and they pulled their report. So we can't
Why?
accept it because they'll be fired. They'll be disgraced.
Ah.
Don't tell, they can't go against the speed of light not being constant. And when I wrote the Professor Rizzo in France, who was doing this experiment, they failed to confirm it. In the modern day, they say, and that's all they will say. And then I asked them
Mm.
very specifically, did the speed of light speed up? Did you get a measurement like that? The answer I got back is, we go by the rules that state that the speed of light is a constant. So he didn't answer my question
Right.
directly. He
He's
said,
giving you the
hey,
robotic one.
we're
Yeah.
going to do this assuming the speed of light is constant. If we get a measurement like that, we're going to change the equipment. Then I dug around some more and I realized that they stopped measuring the speed of light in the 1970s because of the slowing problem.
Oh.
They kept getting slow measurements and slower measurements. And finally, the guy, Raymond Burge, here in the United States, University of California at Berkeley, who was the head of the universal constant, said, okay, you know what, enough of this.
Mm.
We need to pick a number. And eventually that's what they did. They said in August of 1940, they said, the speed of light is this number. That's it. I don't care what anybody else measures. From now on, you set your equipment to that number. And that's when you start measuring the speed of light. We're not going to measure the distance, from a
Mm.
distance. We're going to tune the equipment and you get that number. And that's what we're saying the speed of light is. And now every experiment, including the one where I'm discussing with
Mm.
Rizzo, that's how they measure the speed of it. They don't start it, they don't count it by measuring the distance, measuring how fast it goes from the distance. They just tune it to that number and then start making the measurement.
But where's the science in that? Isn't
That's
science about discovery? Isn't science
ah,
about
fine.
exploring?
It bothers people when they learn about it.
Yeah,
Like they have a reaction like you. It's basically bad science because
mm. You're
you're
not
not
being truthful,
really doing the experiment
right?
anymore. You're blindly following
Mm.
somebody else's rule and declaring something. It's just a number. All I did was pick a number.
Right. No science behind that.
It's a
Have you ever heard
number.
of the Bosnian Pyramids?
No.
Okay, I think you would be fascinated with this. Wonderful gentleman, Sam, I cannot pronounce his surname. They discovered this Bosnian pyramid, which is about 30,000 years old, or probably longer, but massive, huge. And when they got into the chambers, they discovered, the air and the water qualities. They were very healing and they could measure them. And then they also discovered that there probably were about 1,000 pyramids around the world, a few big ones that were actually meant to tap into the universal energy to power this world. And when they went to the people with the discovery of the evidence that was there, people who have discovered other pyramids think, no, it's the pharaohs. It's got nothing to do with that. You're out of your mind. They refuse to accept what was there. And that's the trouble, is scientists should always be the what if. We see it as it is now, but what if we used a different apparatus? Or what if we looked a little further? Or what if we look at a different angle? Because science isn't absolute, is it? It's always going to reveal something else.
Yeah, you got to have an open mind and have a desire for the truth. That should be the ultimate goal of science. It's not to support this narrative or that narrative or this line of thought or that. You look at it and then you make sure you confirm it by repeating the experiment or whatever you need to do, and then this is the tricky part. This is where they keep going wrong.
Yeah.
They get the data, they get the measurements,
They
and
rest on their laurels.
and that's a nice way of putting, they just come to the wrong
Mm.
interpretation, the wrong conclusion. I find this all over science.
Mm. Well, again, I think that's ego that comes in, that nobody wants to be proved wrong. But, when
that's
you're
part of
proved
it.
wrong, that doesn't mean you were right at the time based on the knowledge you knew. Now new knowledge has been revealed that proves that that was a wrong approach. But why do people take it so personally?
Yeah, some people just deep down
Yeah.
very angry if they think you're trying to prove them wrong.
Yes.
They take it personal.
It's a damaged
That's
ego.
what you
Mm-hmm.
can't do that with this kind of work, with this kind of science.
Yeah.
You just got to be saying, let's get to the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's you're right or I'm right, let's talk this out. Let's do what experiments we need to do, and let's make good assumptions and interpretations. Modern day physicists, if they can't see something, they almost always choose the wrong explanation. It staggers the imagination how many things they've got wrong, like star formation theory.
Mm-hmm.
I have a new theory in my book that's very sensible. And the evidence is there that supports it, but they ignore the evidence. Uh, Basically, my theory says that stars are formed from neutronium cores, rapidly spinning neutron stars. And this neutronium, which is solid neutrons, can be compressed greatly because the charge is neutral. So they can be packed really close together, whereas a proton, you can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Its electromagnetic force is orders and orders of magnitude stronger than the gravitational field. So you can't make a proton star, but you can make a neutron star. And instead of seeing the evidence, which is this, the evidence every time there's a supernova and the star blows off its atmosphere, what's left behind? One of two things: a neutron star, a rapidly spinning star, or a black hole, which is, in my theory, a neutron star that's slightly larger, neutron star that has gravity so strong, light can no longer escape.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's a black hole. So a black hole is really a neutron star.
Wow.
So the evidence is right there. They're claiming, oh, you know what caused that neutron star there? The explosion. It imploded and created it right then and there. No, it was always there. It's what formed the star, because the hydrogen gas out in the middle of space isn't going to come together on its own by virtue of gravity. That force is way too weak. You need a gravitational source to pull in and compress the hydrogen so the fusion process starts. That's where the neutronium cores come in. Every star, I'm saying every star has a neutronium core. Where did it come from? The Big Bang.
Mm,
And there's more to it than that. The
right.
neutrons, there's another mystery in science that the scientists don't get. They say, if you put a neutron out in outer space all by itself, away from everything else, within 15 minutes, it turns into a proton and an electron. Okay, well, what's that? Hydrogen. Perfect. Just what the universe needs to form a new galaxy after the Big Bang. Because I'm saying the cosmic egg, that huge black hole that spans millions of light years, when it passes a certain point, the compression is so great that within the center of it, there's trillions of degrees because of the compressions, and the quarks and the neutrons are starting to collide, and photons are shooting out. And this causes a great expansion and blows apart the gigantic neutronium sphere. And all little ones come out of all various sizes, perfect. The bigger ones gather galaxies of gases around them, and the smaller ones become planets, and they become stars. So this and all of these start the fusion process. It's a perfect system. It's a sensible system. It's the only way this universe could actually work.
Right.
But
and this is all in your book, right?
this is all in the book. But you know what? If you ask an astrophysicist how stars are formed, they come up with this very flaky, little gushy explanation. Well, the gases, they kind of out in outer space, they get knotted somehow. And when they get knotted, then they start getting, stronger attraction. And eventually they fall together and make a star. That's your explanation? Okay. When was the last time you ever seen gas on its own? The pressure is going to keep it, its own pressure is going to keep the particles apart. The only reason the Earth has an atmosphere is because it's got a strong, solid gravitational field that draws in and holds the atmosphere.
Right.
Same thing with the stars. They drew in the gases, they're spinning, so then the whole star starts to spin. And we know by looking at the measurements, the Tackleline measurements from NASA, there's something solid inside of the sun. Their own measurements say it.
Right.
But
Yes.
they say, well, I guess it's just solid. Well, the pressure is so great that gas is almost like a solid. Come on.
And then trouble is they're teaching this in school, and then people go away with that thought, and sometimes I think is some of the knowledge sometimes is being the wrong knowledge is bad knowledge, and I think, again, if anybody's going into science, go and get some basics, go and get whatever, but please don't lose your inquisitivity, don't lose your questioning, don't stop being willing, don't just set on what you've been told. Look at it as your basis of information and go and explore what else is out there. And of course, read your book. So how do people get your book, and how do people find you and more information?
Okay, I'm at my website is www.super-relativity.com, super-relativity.com. And you'll find links right on the front page to go to my papers on ResearchGate that describe the gravity and inertia and explain gravity, inertia, and mass. That's very important. That is the solution to the unified field theory. So that's there. You can buy my book from my website, or you can buy it from Amazon. It has a link that takes you directly to Amazon if you want to go there. There's a blog there, and I have some of my old shows there that you can go and watch. And I have a YouTube channel, and there's a link there that'll take you right to my YouTube channel. And I ask you to subscribe there. That helps out a lot. That helps my cause. And if you want to ask questions or something, there's a subscriber page where you can get my newsletter if I ever make one. And I'll get your message through that system. And if you have any questions you'd like to ask me, I'd be happy to answer them via that. I'll send you an email response. So everything is basically at my YouTube and my website at this point.
Right. And of course, if people do want to go to Amazon, it's the Master of Reality. Could you also spell your name, please, for people who want to put your name in and to understand how to spell it properly?
Yeah. Mark, M-A-R-K, traditional. Fiorentino, F as in Frank, I-O-R-E-N-T-I-N-O.
So people
that
put that name
Fiorentino.
in Master of Reality and put the name in Amazon, or you can go to his site again, which is super-relativity.com. You also can read his blog, his YouTube. It's also a profile there, and Facebook and everything. So you can reach out. Of course, you can just put his name in here in selfdiscoverymedia.com in the search engine, and you can find his whole show page here as well with everything on it. So fascinating stuff. I used to have somebody a host that would have been perfect for this show because he really would have totally comprehended what you were talking about. But the thing is, I think what we can summarize it is that science is not set in stone. There is always more to understand, and be open-minded and be inquisitive as to what else is out there. Know that the big changes are coming, and if you want to be a part of it, step into the vibration of love if you want to weather it. And that, quite honestly, stepping into the vibration of love, leaving fear and hate and greed and opulence and power, leave that all alone, you will actually step into the true abundance of life and what is to come.
Very well said.
Thank you so much, Mark. It's really fascinating. I mean, there is a whole kind of campaign out there of dumbing people down and keeping them dumb. Yeah. And that is an agenda, right? That is a political agenda. The powers that be want to keep you there. Please think for yourself, feel for yourself, open up those channels, be inquisitive. There is so much more to understand on so many levels. Mm-hmm. You don't have to be scientific for it, but if you're not open, you can't receive, and therefore you don't know really what you're doing here. So thank you so much, Mark.
Hey, thank you. Enjoyed it.
Until next time, folks. Bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show right here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. Please tune in to our selfdiscoverymedia.com/shows, and you will see all the other genres that we have from you. Every week on Tuesday, we bring you new shows from illuminating people. If you know someone that should be interviewed, please contact us at info@selfdiscoverymedia.com. Now stay tuned for your next show.